Hi everybody, my focus today is going to be on using the three E's to examine the controversies around genetically modified crops as it pertains to sustainability. So the three E's are going to be environment, economy, and equity. The first two are discussed on this slide. So here's a quote directly from the author who came up with the three E's theory on what environment means as it pertains to sustainability. Integrating environmental goals into planning and activism implies developing as much knowledge as possible about local ecosystems and their history, as well as about environmental laws and regulation, environmental planning tools such as impact reports, and best practices of ecological planning and restoration. So that's pretty much how you use environment with sustainability. The author's definition, economy, they point out all the deficiencies of capitalistic economics and of economic analysis generally undercut, as you can imagine, sustainability. So yet many economic tools are useful and necessary in the process of moving towards a more sustainable society. So it's sort of a necessary evil. And then lastly, the third E is equity. Equity goals are often poorly understood and articulated by decision makers, unlike concerns for the environment or economic development. Yet virtually all policymakers interested in sustainability have been forced to acknowledge the importance of addressing equity concerns, thankfully. So in summary, the author wrote, this model serves the purpose of elevating equity and environmental goals to the level of economic objectives within day-to-day decision-making, which alone would be truly revolutionary if achieved, and an enormous step towards more sustainable development. And I completely agree with author Wheeler on this comment. Obviously, in a capitalistic country like America, we have a very heavy economic focus, but equity and the environment need to be weighed in conjunction with the economy. So the first topic we will tackle is the necessary evil of economics. Before we get there, I want to talk about agriculture. So agriculture is already one of the largest contributors to climate change. The dichotomy of that is that we got to feed people, right? So to feed the overall population, the world will have to double its rate of agricultural production over the next 25 years, despite already having quadrupled it in the last 50. What this means is the population of the world is growing, so we got more mouths to feed. In addition to having to just feed people, there's another problem, and that's malnutrition and hunger. So I have a quote here talking about that. Now, the first of the three E's is economics. My question that I posed as it pertains to GM crops is, who owns nature? That sounds weird, but you'll see what I'm talking about. There are laws and regulations pertaining to agricultural development. The first one that I dug up is the Plant Protection Act of 1930, and then you see other acts and other law and legal cases that tie back into that Plant Protection Act. We're going to discuss those right now. Okay, Plant Protection Act of 1930. This act allowed, for the first time, the ability to create a patent for new varieties of plants. So for the first time ever, you could basically patent nature. In 1970, the PVPA was created. It basically extends patent-like rights to the reproduction of seeds. So farmers can save a limited amount of seeds for replanting, but they can't sell it. That's the big shtick there. And the idea here was to promote the new varieties of plants, because guess what? It costs money to do that. So there wasn't really an incentive for people to do that until this act was created. So in 1980, there was a Supreme Court case, and it basically utilized the combination of those two laws. And the result of this case was the Supreme Court ruled that, yes, living things could be patented. So the result of this case is that since 1980, there's been an increase in patents for things like plants and animals. And then most recently, 2013, there was a pretty famous case, Supreme Court case. It was Bowman versus Monsanto. This one says the patent exhaustion doctrine doesn't allow farmers to plant and grow saved patented seeds without the patent owner permission. So really what this is about is giving that power to those companies like Monsanto, saying, yes, your patent is protected. Keep on patenting nature. Heads up, EPA also does a little bit of their own regulation. So it's not just about the Supreme Court and the Plant Act. They do control pesticide laws. So they look at pesticides, anything that we eat or that goes into things like animal feed. There's not one major GMO crop law out there, just so you know. There's all these kind of peripheral laws. So the issue as it relates to economics, because again, we're on the first of the three E's, the issue is patent control is really kind of just dominated by a few companies. So the money is all with them. And that can really cause a lot of red tape, as you can see with this quote here. And you can always pause the video to read it. Now, the second of the three E's is going to be focusing on the environment as it pertains to sustainability and genetically modified crops. This slide talks about how genetic modification of crops has been going on for a long time. You can read there some of the statistics. So the reason why GMO crops are controversial is because there are differences in opinion on their effectiveness and influence. So here's an author. I read several publications that were very pro science based and very pro green biotechnology. So this person is saying, look, hey, biotechnology, it can help mitigate the impact of climate change because it can do some greenhouse gas reduction, it helps crops out, it can do some yield increase. So you'll find that there's a lot of people that think that science is awesome and that the GM crops are just answers to all our prayers, basically. Here's the pro people that say the benefits are like this. You can alter the crop so that nitrogen can be used more efficiently. You can do better drought conditions, so we save on water. You can make plants that have better increase in yield. Monsanto has been known for having success with their Roundup Ready 2 soybean in this regard. But there are, again, red tape issues and there are, detractors. I would say the European Union is a good example. They are not pro GM crop. So you can look at this map here and kind of see some of the countries that are very uncomfortable with these types of crops. The media can be very skeptical. A few years ago in Indiana, Dow Agro, they were rolling out a bunch of brand new seeds that were genetically modified, and there was a lot of pushback. This author talks about how, look, like whack-a-moles, crop science is inadvertently creating ever more resistant weeds, then developing more sophisticated GMOs and herbicides to fight them. So he's saying leave nature alone, and this is a common argument against this genetically modified manipulation. Another aspect of GM as it pertains to the environment would be rogue wheat. This started a few years ago. Wheat started randomly showing up in farmers' fields. The USDA got involved. Bottom line is this wheat has been from Monsanto, and people think that it's blowing in. So again, rogue wheat is not wheat that like holds up a bank with machine guns, har. It's basically a wheat that just literally just blows in on the wind and then starts producing on a farmer's land. So again, that wheat is patented and also it doesn't belong to that farmer. And so this is kind of becoming a small problem that is only getting bigger. Another issue, we've got that conflict between the Trump administration and the Obama administration. The Trump administration recently, in the last couple of years, has been rolling back Obama era laws, which has to do with allowing the growth of GMO crops on wildlife So a lot of people are against that. There's been lawsuits, as you'll see on the next slide. The issue, a lot of it pertains to the pesticides that are used with the GMO crops. This place, the Center for Biological Diversity, they actually sued and they did a press release a couple of months ago talking about how the Trump administration is now zeroing in on the southeastern region. And they're very unhappy with that. So you can read the quote to see what they feel about it. So what is the environmental consensus on the use of GMO plants? Again, conflict. An example of this would be for years, people blame the decline of the monarch butterfly on GMOs. There have been recent studies, though, that debunk this. There was a study out of the College of William and Mary. You'll see the quote here that says, actually, no, it's not GM crops. There's other variables. So again, we've got conflicting information coming in the research. Have a little timeline showing you the discovery of DNA and then how that kind of grew into GM crops. I thought this quote was really great because it shows that, look, some benefits are expected to decline over time with genetically modified crops, and potential benefits and risks may become more numerous as the technology is applied to more crops. So again, you're messing with Mother Nature. You don't know how she's going to evolve and how she's going to overcome what you're creating. So is it actually, in the long run, is it effective? That's the million-dollar question. The third of the three E's is equity. As it pertains to the GM crops, we're looking at poverty and food shortages. So again, there's a big movement, biofortification. This is the process of adding nutritional value to crops. So you can go into the lab, you can create a crop that has more nutrients. A lot of people think this is a great solution. There's actual programs in Africa. I don't have it in the slide, but the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they're doing a lot with this in Africa, trying to feed people. So, do higher yield crops, do they actually alleviate poverty and hunger? There was a great paper in my research I stumbled across called Social Equity and the Genetically Engineered Crops Controversy. So, one of the takeaway quotes is they totally debunked the concept of this increased yield. They're saying, look, what is often overlooked is how higher yields do not necessarily guarantee improved economic farm viability or even decreased hunger. So, lower food prices, they don't even necessarily benefit those who do not have the income to purchase food. So it really depends on, which angle you're looking at here as to what is a benefit and what isn't. The other issue related to equity would be the fact that capitalism tends towards the concentration of wealth and economic power, which makes that inequity. With the case of genetically engineered crops, you're obviously, if you haven't figured this out yet, the economic benefits, they come from a very small group of people like Monsanto. So the issue with that is that they hold all the power and all the money. And they also are the ones cranking out the data. So you can read here about the different patents and who actually is putting those out. Again, not just big companies, but who are the actual human beings involved in the GM debate? We're talking scientists, we're talking civil society representatives, activists, policymakers, business people, farmers. So they all have different interests and they all have different intentions in regards to policies on GM crops. So the major debates are definitely taking place amongst this group of people, and that makes things complicated. Conclusion: we got to find that common ground. We got to use science. Um, this quote I thought was powerful. It says, many who profess sustainability as a political objective are, on occasion, the very ones who oppose the development and application of these tools that can help to ensure sustainability. The only sure way to confirm food security and protect the planet's resources is to refuse to settle into the complacency of maintaining the status quo and to engage in continual constructive change based on scientific know-how. That is what I would call the sweet spot. And that's where we have to get if we're going to move forward with using these crops for sustainability. These are my resources. So I have my resource page. Thank you.